All right, so yeah, anyone who's in this channel or in this live stream, what I plan to do is just maybe stream for 30 minutes or an hour. You're a mess. What do you need help with, Tina? I should teach you how to code. You should come up here and I should teach you how to code on a live stream. Wouldn't that be pretty cool? Do I just like awkwardly sit here until someone asks me to help them with something, or should I just start teaching some random stuff? Maybe I should like act like I'm doing something. Look over here and like Google something. Let's learn about generators real quick, because this is something that I haven't really done much of, but it seems like it should be interesting to use. So I think in a generator in JavaScript, you just put this like little star or asterisk. How do you pronounce it? Asterisk next to your function keyword. You can actually make something called a generator, and then you can actually like use that generator to run code. And every time you call like iter.next on your generator, is going to run one of these yield commands. So let's just like test that out real quick. I can say, just follow the instructions over here. They make a new generator object. And then every time they call it with next.value, let's see, if I run this in node down here, you'll see it prints out 1, 2, 3, and then undefined. So every time you call next, it basically just increments once in the generator. So let me just show you this if anyone's watching. So I have 3 or 4 console logs in the generator, and what I'm going to show you is as I'm like stepping through the debugger, let's see if I get my debugger running. Run that node. I can step through this, and every time I call gen.next, it's only going to run up to the first yield. So if I click continue, you'll notice it prints AA and 1. And behind the scenes, like this generator has like a pointer or like a breakpoint that's kind of like waiting here for me to call next again. So you can do like as much code as you want, and then later on when you run it again, then it kind of step through and continue at this next line. And then if I do it again, it'll get to this yield, and that's why it prints out 3 down here. And then finally it's going to finish and print out undefined. And I think there's a way to like have it be infinite. So let's go down here and look real quick. I know you can have like an infinite for loop or infinite while loop inside the generator and keep on like incrementing values. So that's pretty cool. Like I can call this as much as I want. But there's like a way to have it go back to the beginning, I believe. This person's asking, is it possible to reset the generator back to its initial state? So I wanted to like go back to this when I'm done doing the 4th call. I'll check the chat in 1 second. I'm sure someone has said something, but oh yeah, you could just put it in a while true. Okay, so I could just say while true here, and then I could literally have this generator infinitely just do this stuff. So print 1, 2, 3, which is actually pretty cool. It's really cool for like, I guess, number generation. You could just have it just randomly generate UIDs or GUIDs or IDs for you. How is this better than a normal loop or a normal function? I really don't know, but I guess it's interesting to know that it exists. So let me just go ahead and run this again. You can see it just keeps on continuously looping over all of those 1, 2, 3. It goes back to the start. 1, 2, 3. Dina, you get a nice job doing some programming stuff. I believe in you. So Nayan says, can you help me with algorithms? Is there a particular algorithm? Like, I'm not really familiar with many algorithms, but I could try to help you out if you have a specific one in mind. I haven't done algorithms since like 2013 when I graduated college. But I might be able to help you with one or two if you have a question. Death first search, breath first search. Invert a binary tree. I don't know if I can even do that these days. Oh wow, there's 11 people watching. Yeah, so I mean, if anyone's watching and they want help with JavaScript, if they have a question, like leave a comment in the chat. What's up, Dennis? Yeah, Dennis is another YouTuber. He has really good videos. He does a lot of Django and Python stuff, so definitely check out his channel and subscribe. I'm sure most of these people already subscribe to you, Dennis, but trying to read your comment. I made it work in the paste, but never took the time to break it down. You talking about generators? Yeah, it's like, if you are talking about generators, this is like one of those things. Oh yeah, in the past, okay. Yeah, it's like, I don't really know what the real use case for this is. There's like one or two use cases that I've kind of Googled, but it's like, what is the point of this? In all honesty, if you wanted to like infinitely generate 1, 2, 3, I mean, I guess that is the use case. Let's just Google that real quick. Someone was saying that you can do it for like just auto generating IDs and stuff. I want to read through all this. Yeah, I don't know. Let's see. You can use it to throttle a function easily. Yeah, I don't really know. I don't really care too much. I've never used generators in my like world. Like at my work, I've never used a generator. Oh, maybe I need to go to live chat. I think I'm on top chat. But all right, let's just move on. So explore Baduk, talking about architecture of notifications in Socket.io and PostgreSQL. How would you do structure building notifications? Trying to break down that question. I'm not sure I truly understand it. Like, what is your business use case? Like, what are you trying to achieve? Like, you want a notification to show up in their UI when something happens? What have you been up to, Dennis? I think you published a video recently. Yeah, I saw you're doing some like JWT stuff. Check out your channel real quick. Core concepts of Django. Is link building most important? Yeah, I watched through some of this, refreshing the JWT, and I did looked at this interceptors. Good stuff here. But I hope you've been doing good. I haven't talked to you in a long time. All right, so going back to Explore Baduk, if I pronounce that right, how? Yeah, if you could kind of like explain exactly in like visually explain what you are trying to achieve. Like, are you just trying to have like the UI get notifications? Typically, you have like a web server, right? And that web server has some type of socket server running on it. Your client is going to connect to that socket server so that you have a live connection at all times. And then let's say you need to get a notification when a particular piece of data has been saved or updated or something. If your API is not behind like a load balancer or something, then you could just have some type of watch or some type of function call to just send a notification back to the client. If yeah, I think we kind of did this on a project that Dennis was working on, where like when someone makes a notification and you happen to follow that person, he was working on like a social media site for developers, and one of the things in Django is that you can actually put like don't know what they're called, like hooks or something, but whenever the data is written to the database, I think it's called signals. Let me check what it's called. Yeah, it's called a signal. So you can put like these little hooks on your model on the back end data. And whenever you persist some type of data, such as like a blog post, we loop through and look for all the users that are following that user who posted the blog post. And then we send off like a notification to the user. You can do that with WebSockets if you want to. But I don't know if that's a good overview of what you're trying to do. All right, let me go back up a little bit. So Nyan asked for help with algorithms. He said that he has an input of an array of numbers, a equals 2, output 5. Find the kth largest element in the array. Yeah, we could try doing that together. That might be pretty fun. I don't mean to kind of move past your question, Explore Baduk, but this is like a JavaScript beginner stream. This is more like a system architecture question. And it's really open-ended, so I hope I kind of answered it. If not, we can come back later. Let's try to do this. He's saying that if we have like an array of these numbers, and k is 2, the algorithm is supposed to get the kth largest element in the array. So how would I do this? I would basically sort the array backwards and just get the index k minus 1, right? So I could say reverse sorted is equal to nums dot sort dot reverse. Let me show you this real quick. If I put a break here, and then I can say kth largest is equal to reverse sorted of k minus 1. And let's do this. I guess the answer is supposed to print out 5. By the way, if I clear my throat a lot in the stream, my bad. I just do that when I wake up in the morning. Actually, I do that all the time. You can ask my wife. So let's see if this works. Basically, I take the array, I reverse it, or I sort it and I reverse it. So you can see the array is index 0 is 6, and then it goes down. So we have 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then we want to get the kth largest. So you take k, you subtract 1, that'll give you index 1. And if I run this, that should print out 5 here. So that's how you do that algorithm. There might be other ways to do this, and you'd have to add a bunch of error catching. Like if I did like if this array is only length 1, I think it's going to crash. Because k minus 1 is going to give you like something out of bounds. But that's basically the gist of it. All right, cool. So I think I helped him out with that. The quick sort. Yeah, I don't know how to do quick sort in code. Let's see. Malutu? Did I spell it right? I don't know if I pronounced that right, but Junkie, how do you make a mobile-friendly website with JavaScript? Mobile-friendly. As in, like, you go to your phone, you go to your browser, and you type in your website URL. Usually you just do a bunch of, like, responsive design. Like, even this page, as I'm kind of scaling it down, maybe this isn't a good example, but maybe this one is. Oh, let's see if I can find a good example. Yeah, this is a good example. So usually on your web page, you have a bunch of CSS that has like responsive breakpoints. And once your browser gets to a certain width, you kind of move things around or hide or show things. So you notice here, there's probably a breakpoint right at this width here where these elements are being hidden. And instead we're showing this little hamburger menu, and you can click it and have those show up as well. So usually you'd have like, in this case, you probably have duplicate DOM elements. You might have like 2 navs on your page, and one shows on a certain breakpoint versus the other shows on a smaller breakpoint. And a lot of like frameworks like Bootstrap have built-in, what are they called? Sorry, this is so small, I need to zoom in. They have like built-in media queries, that's the keyword, media queries, at certain fixed widths. So you don't have to worry about doing all that logic, but I would recommend using something like Bootstrap or Tailwind or something where they have these classes that you can attach to your grid system to have things show or hide based on how large your screen is. And then also you can like make your grid system have more columns or less columns depending on the width of your browser. So hopefully that answers your question. If it did, let me know. If not, by asking it again. And again, anyone watching, if you have any JavaScript questions, feel free to ask a question. I can show you how to do something in JavaScript. A lot of people have been asking higher level questions, which is cool too. I can try to answer those. But I really enjoy doing this like algorithm thing. That was pretty fun. All right. All right, so Cordfish, how do you go about creating an API from a Wiki Source Site? The site doesn't provide any API endpoints. Do I need to scrape the site, or how does one go further than this? Yeah, you probably have to scrape the content. I don't like, you're talking about like Minecraft Wiki or something, like one of these like Wiki fandom things. If there's no API where you can get the data, then you probably have to actually like write a web scraper to traverse this site and maybe get all the data and store it in a database or store it in some JSON files or something so that you can have a cached version, because most of these sites probably have some type of like rate limiting so that you can't just keep hitting all their web pages from the same IP address. So that's why you want to kind of like scrape all their content, maybe put that behind like an interval so it doesn't like try to do it all at once, and then store that data locally in JSON files, and then you can kind of write your application to do what you need with that. But how would you do the API? Well, I mean, you wouldn't even need an API for this. You need like a script to first run the web scraping. I think there's like something called Cheerio, which I've used in the past. I've used this for kind of web scraping. You can also use, I think, Selenium if you wanted to, but honestly, I think Cheerio is cool. You just basically do a GET request or fetch request on the URL itself, and then you pass the HTML that you get back into Cheerio, and then you can parse through that to get what you need. Like, you just have to make sure you inspect the elements and then like figure out, like, okay, these are all links, figure out the classes of them. The only issue with this approach is that if they ever go into their website and change classes or change IDs, your scraper is going to completely break. So just keep that in mind. But it should be pretty easy to do. There's a lot of content out there about how to do web scraping. And I think there's actually like tools out there that have like a nice user interface. You can click around and just like set up a web scraping thing. They might charge you money to do it, but I'm trying to keep this stream really chill, so I'm not gonna like just keep on talking. I'm gonna take little breaks. All right, so Alpha Sam, how much JavaScript should we learn to get a job? And then you said promise. Not sure. Do you mean like, do you need to learn promises, or you definitely need JavaScript? Like, even if you're going to learn React, there's a decent amount of JavaScript you have to understand just to use React. So I think you need to know JavaScript pretty well, but there's a lot of like deeper things in JavaScript, if that's the correct term. Like generators, you don't need to know generators. You probably don't need to know proxies, but you need to know how to do like object destructuring. You need to know how to do functions, higher level functions. So that's basically a function that returns a function. You need to be pretty familiar with it. And I think more importantly than just knowing JavaScript, you need to know how to solve problems. Not necessarily like these strange algorithm problems, but just like if I asked you to build something really simple, like you shouldn't be struggling with learning how to do that. especially if you're trying to apply for a job. All right, did I miss anything? Yeah, so Corefish, hopefully I answered your question. After you scrape the content, you probably use like Express or build some type of web API to just post those JSON files. And I think that's about it. Scrape it and then host that content if your UI needs to load it. This person is saying, so you don't need JavaScript. If you're responding to Alpha Sam, you definitely, in my opinion, you definitely need JavaScript to like, get a job. Like you can't be a web developer and not know JavaScript. Excuse me. All right, let's see. ES5 versus ES6. So Rita, are you asking like what is the difference? I guess if you're gonna ask questions in this chat, can you give more context? Because I'm not really sure like what you want me to talk about. ES5 versus ES6, like what has changed in ES6? You have like fat arrow functions, I believe. Let's see, what is new in ES6? I mean, I would just go to the site and say like what is new in ES6 and they'll tell you like what's new. I think there's like fat arrows. I really don't know. Even though I have a Udemy course where I think I talked about ES6, I don't even remember what's in ES6. Like I do actually have a Udemy course, leveling up the ES6, which I used to have this course be free, but for some reason you can't make free courses on Udemy. But yeah, if you go through here, like I have like arrow functions, template literals, modules, classes, destructuring assignments, map and set. Just a bunch of new stuff that's in ES6, but I think most people kind of already know this. Like most tutorials kind of cover ES6 topics these days, so I don't know if there's really too much else to say here. Can you go over binding methods to class instance objects? Yeah, so Juice is saying you might need Puppeteer. That's probably true. You probably need Puppeteer or Selenium or something to actually like have Chrome running so you can actually get the evaluated JavaScript. But if you're doing a wiki page, I mean, usually these are like server-side rendered and all the content should be there. Like there shouldn't be much JavaScript. I would bet if I disable JavaScript in my browser and reloaded this page, most of this content would just show up. So it really depends on how complex of a website you're trying to scrape. But yeah, keep that in mind. That's a good point. Let's see. Alpha Sam, please tell me the main JavaScript. Okay. Oh wow, what is this? A super chat? I think that's my first super chat, so thank you so much, Minsuki. I don't know how much. I don't even know what this is. A Filipino peso. Wow, thank you so much. Really appreciate that. That was $5. Thank you, my man. I hope my videos, if you actually watch my videos, I hope they've helped you. I really appreciate the donation. Let's see. Steel Song, could you like elaborate on what you mean by this? Go over binding methods to class instant objects. I mean, we could try doing like an ES6 class here. So I can say class person. Oops, not a function. So a class usually has a constructor, and then you say binding methods. So the class, you can add methods to it, like get name, and then I can return Bob here, and then I can construct a new person instance like this. So person. You know, I forgot my webcam is actually blocking the chat here, so hopefully that doesn't matter. I totally forgot I had my webcam on, so hopefully I haven't done something stupid on the webcam. But yeah, you can make a new person object by instantiate it with the new keyword. And then I can console log person.getName. Let me save this and let me get out of the debugger. Sometimes it's easier not to use the debugger. So I'm going to run this node index.js, and of course it crashed. because I have syntax errors everywhere. Let me close out of this one. I need more real estate for my terminal down here. All right, so you see here, this is I think this is called an instance method. So this is a method that's attached to the person object that we instantiated from the person constructor. And that's how you basically set those up. I don't know if that's what you're asking. There might also be a way to do static methods here. I forget how to do that in JavaScript, I'll be honest with you. But instead, if you want to do like person dot like jump or something, there's a way to do static methods. I think you just add like the static keyword to it. Let's see. Yeah, you just add static jump. That's a method, and you can have that like just do whatever you want. So I'm gonna console log. We jumped. If I get rid of all this, I should just be able to call that, and it should say we jumped. Okay, so that's a static method. And just note that I don't think you can say like if this person has properties or members, I don't think you can access this .name here. Like I could say this .name to return that name from the instance method, but I don't think we can say this .name here. I think this will probably not do anything. It just prints out person. So keep that in mind. Hopefully that actually answered your question. I don't really know if that's what you're asking. All right. Let me see if I can full screen this real quick. Should learn Python for backend. I think Python's a great language to learn, and you could learn Django. Django's a good framework to build out backend Python APIs. I personally like using Node for my backend because I don't like the context switch between JavaScript and then try to remember like, oh, this is how you do stuff in Python. It's easier if you just have Node on the backend because then you could just focus on JavaScript on the entire stack and just make like it really reinforces your knowledge in JavaScript versus I've tried doing like a Python backend and a JavaScript front end, and you always like waste more time trying to remember the syntax of these different languages, especially if you're learning and you're a beginner, because now you're trying to learn two languages at the same time. But if you just want to be a backend developer, you don't even care about the front end, then yeah, Python is great. I do Python for like little machine learning things on the side for fun, but let's see. Let me get some water real quick. All right, sorry. I'll try to keep up with all these questions. I'm kind of going at a slow pace. I didn't want to get too stressed out in the stream. Sometimes streaming is kind of stressful because you have to like answer all these questions and you feel like you're on the spot. And if you can't answer it, you feel like you don't know what you're doing. But let's see. So I'm like up here still and I have all these questions down here. So please tell me the main JavaScript to get a job as a fresher love from India. That's hard to say, man. It's like it's not about like how much JavaScript you know. It's can you actually build something with the JavaScript you learned? If I came up to you and said, like in an interview, if I was like, hey, how do you make it so when I click on this button, it sends a request to the backend? If you couldn't show me that in code, if you couldn't actually like pseudocode that for me, then I would say you don't know enough JavaScript. Or if I asked you, what is a promise? Explain to me what a promise is. If you sit there blinking your eyes and you don't know what a promise is or how to explain it to me, then you probably don't know enough JavaScript. But I mean, know enough to be able to at least build out a front-end application that talks to a backend, which, I don't know. I could make a video on this. If that's useful, I could try to make a video on like how much JavaScript you need to know if that's something people want to know, but that's a hard question to answer in a live stream. So Mohammed wants to learn about closures. I think, let me make sure, I think the last time in the live stream and let me make sure I know what closures actually are. I think it's related to like where, like you have a function and you can like wrap it in parentheses. Let's see, JavaScript closure. Even I have to like refresh my memory on stuff. Yeah, it's like a function inside of a function, and it's just like how scoping is defined, I believe. Um, yeah, I need to make sure I actually explain this correctly. From what I kind of know, it's probably one of those things where I code with it all the time, but like to me to explain it, it's more difficult. But I think usually it's just a function that might have a function nested inside of it. And so if I had like an age out here of like 15, and then inside of this function, I had a get age, and that also had a function inside of it called like, I don't know, get another age. And I wanted to, I don't know, just console log age here. These, based on like scope, and I think closures is a key word, this function has access to this age variable here. So if I did something like this and ran this, if anyone in the chat is like can call me out, and if I'm doing this wrong, let me know. But notice that this function that's nested inside of this function has access to variables that are at a higher level. So I think that all goes back to scoping, and I think that's kind of what a closure kind of is. But I mean, if you go to here and you actually like declare a different age, like if this was like, I don't know, 25, then this one is going to be able to access this age variable up here. And it's not going to have this one because this is a different type of scope. And I think this is closed over this. I really don't know how to explain this that well, but sorry about that. Let me go back. I should probably understand how to say that because like if someone asks you that in an interview, again, it's one of those things that I've been doing JavaScript for so long, but I don't even know what like a closure is. Remember self-invoking functions. What does this function do? This is called a closure. It makes it possible for a function to have private variables. Okay, yeah, I mean, so this is something I've actually done all the time. I think I've done this recently at work. So let's say you have a function that needs to return a function. Like this is their example. They have like a counter. So using closures, you can actually like have functions return other functions, and this function could have a private member inside of it, such as like count. And then I could return a new function, which is just going to do like count plus plus. Okay, so I think what I can do is say const counter, or my counter is equal to counter. And that is like a factory function or a higher order function. So a function that returns a function, I can just simply call this a couple times and then print out what the last method is. Right, so basically this function has access to this variable because of how closures work in scoping. And so as I'm calling this function down here, it's actually executing this count variable. And every time I do a new counter, like every time I call this, I get a new function with a new count variable that's kind of like private and encapsulated. I'm going to bail out on this discussion because I think I'm making it worse than someone else. Oh, there's too many questions. I can't keep up with this. Let's see. Where do older 40-plus-year-old developers go? I mean, they stay in the industry. People say there's ageism in tech, but I mean, my dad worked until he was like 65 and retired as a software engineer up to 65. So like, they're not just firing people when they get older. Maybe some companies it's harder to get hired if you're older, but in my opinion, the older you are, the more experience you have, and usually you're not doing like this lower level coding work. You probably have more knowledge about building systems and making them more resilient, making them more like available. You're more like in a consulting role usually, but yeah, I think they just hire, the younger the developers are, the more they're just working on like the lower level, make this widget in the UI show up. But maybe there's ageism. If you have actually like examples of people can't get hired because they're older. A lot of older people also are unwilling to learn new things. Like they'll be so stuck in like what they're doing and they've been doing it for 20 years. They don't realize that, hey, maybe they should learn something new so they can get a better job or, be more valuable. Mohammed, how do you keep JS concepts remembered? I don't. Like, someone just asked me about closures. I had to Google it. It's one of those things where it's like, I kind of know, and like I could just code it in JavaScript. Like I know how JavaScript works and I can code in it. But if someone asks me in an interview, like, can you describe a closure? I'm going to give you a really fuzzy like example here. And it's not going to come across as very intelligent or whatever. But yeah, just Google stuff. I just always Google stuff. A lot of stuff I do have memorized because I just been doing it for so long. But some stuff like generators and proxies, I do go back to the docs and I try to like figure out how to do these things. So 5019 Gokul, I find React a little hard. Tell me if I should go back and master JS or should I try some other frameworks like Vue? I guess I'd ask, what do you find hard about React? Because there's a lot of JavaScript that's involved in writing React components. So if you are getting stuck on simple things like the fact that a use effect takes in a callback function and returns a function, like that's pretty much an example of JavaScript. I think it's called higher order functions. I might be getting this wrong, but I think a higher order function is a function that either takes in a function or returns a function. So if there's like stuff like that that you're getting tripped up on, or like, I don't know, a lot of times you say set state and we do ... my object and then like key ABC. Like you've probably seen this a lot in React where you have a setter for state and you have to like pass in. All right, let me actually do this valid. Let me do like const user set user. So this is actually more relatable. And let's just pretend we have like a use hook state here. And user is equal to an empty, I'll say user is equal to null. Sorry, my keyboard's messed up. Some of the keys don't work, so that's why I have to keep like typing and untyping. But you've probably seen this all the time where if you need to update user, you have to do like ... user and then, I don't know, subscribe is true. If you want to update subscribe to true or false, you have to do something like this. This is just JavaScript. This is a spread operator, which takes your user object and takes all the properties of it and combines it with these other keys and then returns a new object with a new reference. So yeah, you have to kind of make sure you're not getting caught up on the JavaScript stuff. And if you are, then yeah, you should probably go back, learn more JavaScript, and then come back to React to see like what am I getting tripped up on? Like even this is a JavaScript destructuring concept. So this is array destructuring. Use state just returns an array, and we're basically saying destructure that array into two new variables. So if this is something that you're getting caught up on, you probably need to learn more JavaScript. Yeah, I'm gonna try to make a video about like how much JavaScript you need to learn to get a job and how much JavaScript you need to learn before you learn React. I think a lot of people ask a similar question, so I think that'd be a good video idea. Is Python okay? Yeah, so it might take me a while. I already answered this question though. Yes, Python is worth learning, in my opinion, if you want to be a backend developer. Where was I at? I'm sorry. How long has this stream been going for? All right, what are the main reasons? Joseph Kovac? What are the main reasons from your point of view why one should make project in TypeScript instead of plain JavaScript? So yeah, if I could start it all over, like learn from the beginning, I probably would have started with TypeScript because learning with a typed language is much easier, right? So there's so many times in JavaScript, you'll have like an object or something, and that object has a method called like get names. Okay. And let's just have that return an empty array. So this is an example of why I think TypeScript is probably a lot better to understand, or better to use when you're learning. There's so many times in JavaScript where I'll say like object.getName, I'll call it. Right? Now, if you're experienced, you can probably see what's wrong with this if I print this out. All right, so it's printing out, okay, my editor is correcting that for me. I meant to say get name and leave off the S. But there's so many times where I do stuff like this where I totally forget to add an S or I mistype something and stuff doesn't work. Maybe this isn't the best example, but TypeScript would have highlighted this in red for us and we wouldn't have this issue. You can also use ESLint. That helps a lot as well if you're a beginner, but I think it's more of like a crutch or a band-aid on top of dynamic languages in general. But TypeScript, similar to like Java or C#, will just highlight these errors for you. And like as a beginner, you don't want to get stuck here on simple little mistakes here because you called the function wrong. Another good example of why, let's say we had another function called like update person. And update person took in an object. And all this function needed to do was maybe, I don't know, console log object dot age. Another example is, let's say you call this and you pass, let me rename this to something else, like shopping cart items. So let's say you accidentally pass a object to this that has shopping cart item. Again, this is like the same example where you accidentally left off the S here, but I don't know, let's just say you said like cost is 12. And if you call this, you'll notice that it prints out undefined. And as a beginner, like I personally remember spending like 30 minutes to hours just trying to debug like what's going on here. Cause you're like, dude, I'm calling this property shopping cart items. I'm passing that property in shopping cart items, but your mind is making you think there's an S there, but really you forgot the S. So I spent hours just trying to debug issues like this. And it's like, oh, it's because I forgot an S. Using TypeScript, you're not going to stumble on stupid stuff like that. So that's why I definitely think that you should start with TypeScript. It's a little bit hard to set up, but I mean, like, there's so many. It's really not that hard to set up. I think you just run like TS node. Let me show you that. Let me rename this file. Sorry, I'm kind of getting off on a tangent, but I think this is important to kind of talk about. So let's say instead we have a function called update person. And we knew that this function actually has like an interface defined. So I could say like interface update person interface. And that is a method that takes in, actually, let me just do this. Let me make a type. Sorry, I'm like jumping all over the place. Let's say there's a type in TypeScript called person, and that person has a method or a property called shopping cart items, which happens to be an array of objects or something like that. I think I need to do an equal sign here. So in TypeScript, you can actually say, okay, this is a person. So person of person. And now if I were to try to pass in shopping cart item and I'm missing something or misspelled something, notice that it highlights this. As a beginner, this is like super, super valuable. I started to learn to code in Java, and like you get this stuff all the time, so you don't waste your time just trying to like debug simple stuff. But there is some overhead of like learning how to do types and interfaces and stuff. But if you just keep it simple with just like at least putting types on the things that you're passing into functions, it's a lot easier. I hope that explained. I kind of talked about for a while, but hopefully that explained this question. Oh, well, let me ask, well, let me let me hit on one more point. As you make a larger project and you have a lot of people, it's a lot easier to like look at other people's code and know how it works without having to dive into the implementation. Sometimes you have a function that's like 100 lines long and it takes in a bunch of arguments, and you actually need to go and look through how that function is being, or how those arguments are being used to figure out okay, this is an object that has a property X, and X is actually an object. It's let me just wrap that question up. Yeah, no problem. I'm glad you enjoyed the content. Hope you all learned something from it. Oh, dude, there's too many questions. All right, let me try to get through some of the lower hanging fruit questions. Is it worth studying PHP in 2022? I personally thought PHP is cool. Like, there's like a lot of people hating on PHP for some reason, but I mean, PHP with Laravel, if you want to do like a server-side render application, I think Laravel comes bundled with Vue, so it's good. All these backend libraries and frameworks are basically the same. Like, you just take in requests, store that in a database, you get data from a database, you send it back. So it doesn't really matter what language you use as long as it has good tooling around it. Like, I like JavaScript and Node because there's a lot of blog posts out there that explain stuff. There's a lot of tooling about it. There's a lot of testing tools like Jest, Cypress. But yeah, if PHP has a lot of cool stuff and libraries that you can use, then I would say use it if you want to use it. All right, give me a second. It also depends on like what are people hiring for where you live. Some places don't really hire for PHP and some people do. All right, let me just move on. I need to get to these questions. There's too many. What is component lifecycle? That is like when a React component is created, when it mounts, when it unmounts, when it gets destroyed. I don't really know it that well because honestly, you don't really need to know it that well in my opinion. But I thought there was like a little chart about it. Is this chart relevant? Let's see. Okay, where did that chart go? Here it is. So I don't know if this is up to date, but I think this is a React like lifecycle, and I'm assuming that this is blocking by my head. But basically, it tells you like when are things called in your React component. Oh, this is probably not even functional React. But yeah, I mean, I guess it's good to know like when stuff is called on certain things under the hood. But in my opinion, a framework, you shouldn't have to know this stuff. Like this stuff should all be taken care of. All you need to know is if I have a variable and I'm displaying it somewhere, that variable gets updated automatically for me. That's the power of a framework, that it kind of abstracts away all this complexity from you. And really, you just need to know the top level functions of how to get it working. If you have to actually dive into the lifecycle, like how it all works and getting into the black box of what React is, then I think the people who made the framework are doing something wrong. But I don't know. I don't really know the lifecycle events, I'll be honest. And I don't really care because I'm able to build a lot of applications without knowing much other than when it mounts and when it unmounts. But I'm sure if you need to get like really good performance out of your components, you have to like dive more into like when does it actually re-render, when does the shadow DOM or whatever like do reconciliation and stuff. Now I'm just throwing terms out there that make me sound smart, but I really have no idea what those things are. Like reconciliation, I've never read that part of the React docs. Yeah, Node can handle the backend as well. At work, we have an entire application in the backend that has like, I think it might have 100 or something endpoints by now. It has a lot of endpoints, so it's all written in Node and Express. Yeah, I love this theme. I like the Shades of Purple theme. I've tried a lot of different themes. I wanted to do, I like this red theme too, but I think this one might be too intense for live streams. So let me go back to my Shades of Purple. Here we go. All right, all of them saying just code. Is that enough to become a good coder? I mean, yeah, I think if you just keep on coding, keep on focusing on building projects. I know a lot of people who just watch videos and tutorials and they can't really do much of anything themselves because they've been watching videos for so long. I think watching too many tutorials is a real deterrent from you learning how to code. You really need to like actually just load up an editor and just try to code for yourself and on your own project and try to make that project large. Like don't just try to make a small little weather app widget. Like that's cool to do for your first couple of projects, but you need to actually start building out larger applications that have more endpoints and do more show alerts, have transitions and stuff. But yeah, other than just coding, also find a mentor, find someone to code with so you can struggle with that person and kind of like learn these new concepts together. But yeah, it's like riding a bike or anything else. You just have to practice doing it. And unfortunately, there's no book or tutorial that can show you how to problem solve. Like you have to figure out how to problem solve for yourself. Oh my gosh, look at all these questions. Tell us the new trends in web development 2022. And what technologies are you interested in studying in 2022? And then he says we need a video on advanced DOM and events. I don't know if I know advanced DOM. Okay, so let me just say I'm like a jack of all trades type of person. I like to learn a little bit about everything from the front end to the back end to the DevOps, the full stack, the whole spectrum. And I never really go into much depth because I found that you can actually get a lot done without diving into the actual like technical details of all this stuff. So when we say advanced DOM, I probably know a thing or two about advanced DOM, but I really don't even know what that means. I think just learn enough to be able to create projects, like create a website for yourself. If you have to dive into more technical things, like if you need to dive into a generator in JavaScript or to a proxy in JavaScript, then at that point, when you're building your project, you find that you need it, then dive into the docs and try to figure out how to use it if it helps you. I don't know what the trends are. I know a lot of people are using Next.js, and I'm hoping SvelteKit blows up. I hope people start using Svelte because I really enjoy using this framework / library. But I think the trends are going to be more in DevOps, cloud computing. That's been going on for a while. And then, of course, TypeScript is always trending. TypeScript is always going to be popular for larger companies and corporations. But I hope this blows up. I'm kind of tired of using React. I'll be honest with you all. But I've been using it for a while now, so I'm trying to like look for new things, but React is still pretty good. What's up, Akash? Did I say that right? This is like my other than my wife always commenting on my videos, Akash is also someone who like is always on my channel and getting help from me and stuff. So welcome to the stream. The audio is out of sync for me. That's not good. Let me see. Looks good on my phone, so I don't know. Okay. Okay, so some of these are technical. How much JavaScript is required to get in React? I want to make a video on this. I've had like 3 people so far ask me this, Akash. But I want to make a video on like, what do you need to know about JavaScript before you should start learning React? I think that'll be a good video. Coding after 30, what's up, my man? Sorry, I just saw this comment. I'm so far behind with my comments, but if you haven't subscribed to Coding After 30, check him out. I wonder if I can just go to his channel, Coding After 30. Oh, not Fiverr. Why did I go to Fiverr? This guy's the man. He has a lot of cool videos that like help you become a developer. Let me go here. Yeah, so head over to his channel, click that subscribe button, click his bell icon, check out some of his videos. He does a lot of live streams as well. I love just like listening in on his live streams because it's just funny stuff, good entertainment, and then he has good tips and tricks if you're trying to learn. Did I say that right? Tips and I don't know. Yeah, check him out. Darshit Singh. I'm so bad at pronouncing these names, so I apologize. Does it make sense to learn about penetrative testing as a front-end developer? I think it's good to know about security, but I think that's more of like something that you become like more of like a niche expert in security, so that you can actually like do testing on your front end to make sure that you're not doing some type of vulnerability. I think just knowing like how to protect yourself against like, what are those XSS attacks? XSS attack? Yeah, that's the word. cross-site scripting, at least knowing how to do that, and some of the other front-end security vulnerabilities that sometimes people do in their applications. But no, I think they're two different fields. Like if you want to be a security person and like focus on penetration testing, I don't think you really need to focus too much on it if you want to become a front-end developer or something. But it's always good to know more so you don't write bad code and deploy bad applications. Coding after 30, using React custom hooks versus higher order wrapper functions. Jumped on late, and that would be a good video. Higher order wrapper functions. You're asking some hard questions, man. I don't even know what this even means. I know custom hooks. I actually was making a MERN stack video where I did a custom hook to like basically abstract away if the user is logged in. I grabbed some context and then I return a Boolean true or false if that context variable exists. But in terms of higher order wrapper functions, I probably need to look that up. Like what exactly are you wrapping? Like do you have a use case coding after 30 or a good example I can talk about? Hoisting. So on JavaScript, let me go back and rename this. I'm sorry, all I can't keep up with all these questions. So in JavaScript, I believe if you don't use the const or let keyword, things are going to be what's said hoisted to the top of your file. So like if I did a function called like get name and that returns hello, I'll return. Okay, there we go. I can actually call get name up here. Console log get name. And let me run that. What's it complaining about? Not found. Oh, node index.js. All right, so you notice now I can actually call this function because it was hoisted to the top of the file when JavaScript runs. I don't really know how it works like underneath the hood. I think it kind of like reads through your function block, finds every function keyword and like just stores that somewhere so that you can actually call it beforehand. But note that this doesn't work if you do constants. So if I said const my function and tried to do this, I believe this will crash. Yeah. It also doesn't work for let. So if I do this, this will crash as well. I think it only works for the function keyword, and I think it also works for vars. Like I can say var name, and then name is equal to 1. Let me see if this actually works. I might just be making some stuff up here. So if you don't use let or const, instead use var. Let me rename that. It says name is deprecated. This is some janky code right here. But yeah, I think this is going to be hoisted to the top of the file, which allows us to override it. Or maybe this is just a global. I don't know. I haven't used var, the keyword, and I don't use globals in JavaScript, so I don't really know how that stuff works, but hopefully that kind of explained. Coding after 30. Also, I agree with Python being a good language, but would you learn it before Node? And I personally would just focus on Node in JavaScript. If you're trying to learn how to code, it's much easier if you focus on one language at a time because there's already a lot of syntax in JavaScript that's going to take you a very long time to learn. So if you're jumping back and forth between Node, if you're jumping back and forth between JavaScript and Python, if you're trying to make like a Python backend and then a React front end, you're going to have to do all that context switching, which I think is going to be very hard for a beginner. So if you just want to focus on data science or just Python in general, then yeah, that's cool. You can learn Python. But if you ever want to start getting into the front end or become like a full stack, it's going to be a larger barrier because you have to learn more. What are webhooks and sockets? So sockets are just basically a connection. Typically when you make a request to a backend, it's like a short-lived, you send a request, you get a response, and that connection's dead, right? It kills the connection. A socket is like an always alive connection so that you can send data to and from the server, and the server can send data to your web browser, and that connection never gets disconnected. So it allows you to have much faster response requests in terms of latency, because you don't have to like open up that TCP header and do the connection in the handshake. It's just a connection that's always open, so you can just send data across the wire. Webhook is usually like, GitHub's a good example. They have different things, webhooks that you can initialize, and when something happens on GitHub, for example, when you do a commit or you make a PR, you can set up a webhook to have that basically invoke your API. So it's like you kind of tell their API when something happens, call your API. I believe that's if I explained that correctly. Yeah, I'm using the Shades of Purple plugin, Athic, if I pronounce you right. Oh my gosh. Ooh, this webcam guy's coming in strong, huh? Let's see, I'll report him first. I'll say that. And I'll remove him, or can I block him? Hide user, how about that? All right, getting some spam here. Let's see. Where am I at? Yo, my kids just woke up and my wife's downstairs holding on the fort. I've been going for an hour now, so I might actually wrap this up real quick. Let me just try to, let me ask her. Give me a second, guys. I'm so sorry. I'm at 23 viewers right now. That's crazy. It looks like most people are from India. Yeah, most of my viewers are from India. So I don't even know. It's like, is India plus 8 hours from where I'm at? I'm on East Coast, but let's see. Can you tell me about the determination of pi by the amount? No, I don't even know what that is, so I can't. I have no idea what that is. Monte Carlo method. I also don't know why you need to know that. Is this for like an interview, like an algorithm question? Like literally no one in the world needs to know what this is. But I can't tell you that. All right, the mince meat. What is this syntax for? For example, item name. Yeah, so if you have an object, if you have an object in JavaScript, and that object has a property called name, you can access that property's value by just saying console, let's say console log. Let me rename this to item so it makes more sense. I'm answering this question. If I said item and then say name, this is actually the same as doing item.name. Oh my gosh, why are there so many extra brackets? What's going on here? But these two are equivalent, right? Now the benefit of using this one is you can actually dynamically fetch properties. So if name was actually a variable like this, I can actually pass in the key here as a string, and that'll also access that property based on the variable when it gets executed, right? So this is going to execute to name, which means it's going to go up here and grab this value when this gets executed in code. Does that make sense? So this is really useful sometimes when you're dealing with dynamic data structures or dynamic maps. Which Linux distro do you think is good for programming? I think Ubuntu. I actually have a desktop computer over here, which I was going to basically clear out and install Ubuntu on, but anything with a UI that has support for most of the tools, I think is good. Like when there are a string in brackets when you're looping. I'm not sure what that question is. Yeah, Fedora. I haven't used Fedora before, but I'm assuming it's very similar to Ubuntu. Coding after 30. Good point on watching too many tutorial videos. Yeah, I just know a lot of people who watch a lot of videos, and I feel like they're not actually like learning the ability to do things on their own. So that's why I sometimes debate, like, should I even be making so many tutorial videos? But hey. All right, where am I? Amid, hey, how's it going? Uvam, did I pronounce that right? All right, Coding After 30 says, don't let overthinking and overstudying paralyze you from building and executing on projects. Yeah, I definitely recommend go to Coding After 30's YouTube channel, subscribe, press his bell icon. He has a lot of good tips for you if you're trying to learn how to code and what you can do to like land a job. I think he talks a lot about that stuff as well. What's up, Mimo? This guy, he has some pretty funny videos, pretty good videos on, he does CSS battles. I enjoyed watching some of his videos, so hey, what's up? What is the extension you're using at the most bottom extension sidebar, the leaf? This is the Mongo. This is the Mongo extension. So if I have a Mongo database running locally or remotely, I can just click on it and then actually view the tables that are in that Mongo database. Let's see. Can you help with TypeScript? I'm not an expert in TypeScript. I don't. If you have a question, I could try to answer it, but yeah, I could try to help. Mrs. R says, "Hey, you look tired. Hey, I am tired. I have 2 kids. I think we went to bed at like 2. My wife went to bed at like 4:30 because she was playing some game that she downloaded on her phone. Like, kids, where you out, man?" And I also woke up. I woke up at 7 because my kid needed milk, and then I washed both of our dogs. We have a black lab / Great Dane mix. I washed him, and that takes like a whole hour to wash him and dry him. And then I was cutting his nails, and I accidentally nicked like too far in the nail, and he started bleeding. So then I spent like an hour just making sure that he didn't track it all over the floor. It was a mess this morning, but he's doing good now. Yeah, no problem. Thanks for the shout out. No problem. Rapunzel, hey, any tips for working with APIs if there isn't a direct way to get the info you need? I'm wanting to get a random link to a YouTube movie trailer from TMDB, but I can't seem to get it figured out. Yeah, someone else actually asked a very similar question. He said there's no API for what he's trying to get. And yeah, this one right here. How would you go about creating an API from a wiki source site that doesn't provide an API endpoint? You just have to crawl the site. You actually need to write like a web scraper and probably scrape whatever site that you're trying to get. TMDB. I haven't even seen what TMDB is, but it's probably a site that has a bunch of movie information. So you probably just need to write a scraper that scrapes the data, puts it somewhere, and you can write another UI to access that, or your API could access that. Hopefully I explained that okay. All right, I'm almost caught up with all these questions. I'm going to sub to Coding After 30 now. How to use regex to separate paragraph. Separate paragraph to array. Yeah, so let's say you had paragraph. Let's say you had a bunch of text like this. I'm just going to keep typing. And then usually a paragraph would have a new line break, right? When you're done typing your lines, you'd have a new line break. Maybe there's a / return statement. I don't know. But what you could do is if you assume that your data actually has new lines separating your paragraphs, what you can do, so that should be good, is you can say, let me change this to like document. Okay, that's probably a reserved word. Let me say Word document. I'm answering this question, by the way. Sorry, I kind of like jumped around. And he wants to be able to split up a Word document that has paragraphs into separate paragraphs inside an array data structure. So I can say like const paragraphs is equal to Word document dot split, and then I can say / new line character, I believe. I might have to use regex here. He's always asking for regex. So let me print this out real quick. I think you can use regex here, so I could just do / new line like this. Maybe, I don't know, let's try it. Yeah, so now we have an array of 2 elements. We have the first paragraph here, and we have the second paragraph. And let me actually show you this with like book online. Like let's download Moby Dick real quick. Just copy some stuff into here. Let's see if this actually works. So if we have 4 paragraphs here, we kind of copy this all in. Okay, that's not going to work, but hopefully that kind of answers your question. Smart Potato, hey, just wanted to say hi. This is a great idea what you're doing. I am newbie at JavaScript. Yeah, I did this stream a while back and I got a lot of viewers, so I think this actually helps people out. I think I'm at 17 viewers right now. So I think people find some value out of this. Coding after 30, I think higher order function were very common before hooks came out. Yeah, let me just Google that. Sorry, you probably asked this like 20 minutes ago, but let me let me go back and see what this even is. React higher order functions or higher order components. Is it just a component that returns a component and then you have some private state here? It takes in a function, a component, which it then calls passing addition. I don't know. I really haven't even used this often. So I can't tell you like what its real use case is for, but I guess if you needed to like dynamically take a component and inject it inside of another component, do something like this. Can't really tell you. I haven't used it. So it must not be that important if I haven't used it before. Because I work on a pretty big project with a lot of React components, and I don't think we actually do this at all anywhere. Maybe we're just all noobs. But there's like 8 other developers and no one has done a higher order function, I don't think. Yeah, I just randomly decided I'm going to do a live stream. So you just got to make sure that you're lucky. All right, my wife said she's good watching the kids right now, so I'll keep on going. By the way, if this stream is helping you out, press that thumb icon because it helps me out. And subscribe if you're not already subscribed if you want to see my this ugly mug face again. Let's see. You're pronouncing my name correctly. Or I read that one. Yeah, so coding after 30, maybe I'll Google this and try to spend time trying to figure out what this actually is. Because I don't know what it is or what its purpose is. I need to actually, the way I learn is I need to find like good use cases that explain when you do it. The one I was Googling right here, like it was showing me something about random numbers and stuff. It's like, dude, that's not a real business use case. I need to see a real use case of when you'd use this on a real application. A lot of examples you see online, like they give you this really basic, boiled down example, such as like when you're doing test-driven development, they show you how to test an add function that adds A and B. It's like, that doesn't help anyone learn. Like, you need to show me how to do test-driven development on an actual API where I'm building endpoints or a real-life business use case, is not a simple add function. Sorry, I went off on a tangent there. Let me drink some coffee. All right, Parth Telly. How much demand is for React.js in Australia? I don't know. I don't live in Australia. But I would go to Indeed.com or any of those job hunting sites, type React.js and type the filter for country Australia and find out what it is and compare that to other things. Like type in Vue, type in Angular and find out how many job postings come up depending on what you search. 5019, let's see. Ever heard about Jonas Schmederman? He is really good mentoring Udemy. Ever take his course? I actually haven't taken any Udemy courses. I think I bought one that was related to like a business thing, like how do you grow a business, or maybe it was more like UX or something. But I don't think I've bought any coding related Udemy courses, to be honest with you all. The way I learn is I'll go. Let me give you some information about the way I like to learn. So like, if I am trying to learn a new concept, like just recently I was trying to learn Kubernetes, which is like a DevOps related tooling for managing and provisioning your servers. If I need to learn something new, what I'll do is I'll go to the docs first. If the docs are way too overwhelming or they're saying a bunch of things I don't understand, I'll go back and I'll go check out a YouTube video. I'll try to find like a 5-minute, 10-minute crash course video where people can start saying these concepts and they kind of get baked into my head. And then after that video, I'll go back to the docs, read it some more. I'll maybe try like the getting started guide and just get a local running copy on my laptop. And I kind of just repeat that process. If I keep getting stuck, I'll go see if there's a YouTube video that explains some of these concepts better. And then I will go back to the docs. Like for example, there's like ingresses and services and pods and deployments on Kubernetes. I could Google videos for all four of those separately and just like make sure I have a good overview. But then I always go back to the docs because the docs are going to kind of give you the most detailed explanation. Man, I can't even speak. Of like what you're trying to learn. Whew, the stream. I don't know why streaming is so hard for me. It's like I get kind of nervous and my voice goes away, but is JavaScript the future? I sure hope not. I hope something else comes and replaces JavaScript. I'll be honest with you all. It's a cool language to build stuff in, but just the fact that we still have the var keyword in JavaScript, it's like we're just piling more poop on top of poop. And it's like, can we get rid of the other stuff? Can we actually remove the var keyword at some point? Can we remove these things that make the language ugly? But that's just my opinion. I think it's going to be sticking around for quite a long time. I think there's going to be, the future is going to be languages that compile down in the JavaScript. Like TypeScript is kind of one of those steps in the right direction where we have a more useful construct on top of JavaScript that helps you write and maintain larger projects. But again, TypeScript is kind of putting band-aids on top of stuff. So I don't know. I don't mean to be so negative, but yeah, just I have opinions. I just don't like to always state them. Yep, thank you so much. I'm glad you enjoy my channel. I'm glad some of the videos I have helped you. Have you used GitHub Copilot and thoughts? Coding After 30, you're still here, my man. This guy's the man. Yeah, I've used Copilot. I actually have it set up. I thought I had it set up. Copilot. Maybe it's not on this user. But I did have it installed. I actually made a video on it. Let's see. YouTube Web Dev Junkie. Let me delete some of the stuff. Got too many tabs open. What did I click on? Oh, here we go. I fell for Google's trap where they put the ad first and I clicked on the ad. So I actually have a video about Copilot somewhere here. Here it is. So I try to actually make like a simple expressed API using Copilot, and it's useful, but it's not like a game changer in my opinion. What I find Copilot really useful for is if you need to figure out how to do something like on the Amazon SDK, like if I wanted to upload something to Amazon S3, I like how I can just say like add a comment, upload file to AWS S3, and that will basically take code snippets from Stack Overflow for me and just put them right in my code. So it kind of saves me a step. I don't have to go Google anymore. I just type a comment, I get some example code, and that kind of shows me, okay, this is how you might do it. But the code that it puts into your editor is typically bug ridden. It doesn't actually work perfectly with the context of what you're adding it to. So Copilot's good, but you need to be very familiar with coding and like reading through code and making sure the code's good, because it's going to grab you crappy examples and put them into your code base. Let's see. Have you used Copilot for anything? Thoughts? Yeah, I mean, I still have it enabled on my other user because I do find it useful, especially when I'm doing bash scripting. Sometimes I'll have like a bash script. Let's just say I have like a bash, or let's say I have like a run.sh script. In Copilot, again, bash isn't my primary language, so if I need to remember how to like loop over all files in directory, I usually type a comment in it and then boom, I get the example and I can just use it right then and there, versus me going, okay, let's go to Google. Let's type this in. Let's click on one of these links and hopefully it's good. And then I have to scroll down and look at this code example, whereas I probably would have had Copilot just paste that into my code base and like, I'm good to go. But yeah. All right. This stream still helping everyone? Should I keep going? I have not tried Flutter. I don't really do any type of Android or iOS development on the phone. I just do web development. Unless maybe Flutter can be used. Is Flutter something you can use for building out websites? I think it's more for like the phone. I haven't used it, but I'm sure it's cool. Every piece of tech seems like it's pretty cool. I snorted some cocoa powder in my coffee. Yeah, something else that's really cool with this. Let me show you something really cool that I'm sure people know about this already. But when you're declaring an object, you can actually declare it like this. So if I have a variable up here called key of like name, I can actually declare that dynamically like this, and then I can console log that. And let me run this. So that'll print out that object, and notice that I didn't actually put name here. This was dynamically like executed and brought in. Just a cool little shorthand. I wasn't sure if people knew that, but really cool. Rapunzel, thank you. Sorry to ask a similar question as before. Got here late. No problem. Yeah, I mean, I hope I helped answer it. Maybe you can rewind and go back to the first 5 or 10 minutes. I wish I could see timestamps. I feel like I'm responding to people who've asked like a question 15 minutes ago, and they're probably not even here anymore. So, but the chat is dying down, so I think people are dropping off. I got 15 people watching. All right, coding after 30. Damn, bro. How you make time for anything? 2 kids and a dog and a wife, and I actually have 2 dogs. But I don't know, I just find time. Like the kids will go to bed, or if the kids go to bed early, I'll stay up an extra 30 minutes or an hour, record a video. Or if I'm lucky and I can wake up early, which doesn't usually happen because I cannot wake up early. But today I managed to wake up early, which is like a good thing because I had time to wash the dogs and I had time to come do this stream. Both of my kids are awake right now, but yeah. I had no idea you could pass regex to a split method. Yeah, I actually didn't even know. Sometimes I just pass regex to things, and sometimes JavaScript just works. Like, I don't have these things memorized. I honestly just try stuff, and if it crashes, I'll go to the docs and figure out what I'm doing wrong. But if it works, then I just gotta continue on. Higher order components. I stopped using them too. I think before hooks, it was the only way to do things, but definitely probably not worth it anymore. Yeah, I'm not sure if... I kind of started using React. On our project, we started using class components, and then like hooks came out, and then everyone was doing like functional React. So I went ahead and refactored all of our components to just be functional React on our project at work, and we have absolutely no class components. I think we have maybe 1 or 2 because of something that we need to do. But in fact, I don't even know why we have those class components, because I think everything that you could do in a class component could be done in a functional React component with hooks. Suvan Debnath, what is your profession? I'm a full stack web developer. I work with, React and JavaScript at the front end, Express, JavaScript in the back end, and I do a lot of DevOps stuff related to Amazon. Do a lot of Terraform. So basically, Terraform is an infrastructure as code tool where you can kind of write code and that'll spin up your servers and manage your Amazon resources. But yeah, short answer is full stack engineer. Great tips on learning, docs, crash course, more docs, try and build and repeat. Yeah, a lot of stuff you say, coding after 30, is like stuff that I actually do. So that's one reason I really like watching your videos, because it's like you'll say something and I'm like, dude, I actually do this all the time. Or with stuff like, man, I wish I actually knew this when I was learning the code. But yep, thank you. I'm trying. I don't really stream that often, but it seems like people like watching my streams. All right, I can't even scroll down anymore. I think is my head hiding that? Let's see. It's all about JavaScript exhaustion. Yeah, at some point you're just like, dude, I don't care about these new frameworks that come out. Sometimes a new one will come out and like there's like Redux, and then like people start talking about XState, and I'm like, dude, have you actually used this tool? Like, this tool does not seem like it's a good solution, but people seem like they like XState for some stuff. And then there's people talking about Solid.js is a better replacement for React, and it's like, dude, let's just stick with the one thing. Like, I was really getting good into Angular JS and Angular 2. And then like everyone hated it on Angular for the longest time. So I'm like, in my head, I'm like, man, I need to learn React now because everyone hates Angular. But Angular is still a really, really awesome framework that's used by a lot of big companies. You know, it has like everything included, and it does like well designed, like clean architecture with dependency injection and stuff. So I don't know. I'm just using React now. Let's see. I need to take a breather. Yeah, thank you so much. I'm glad you joined. I'm sure you're going to be streaming later this weekend or Monday or something, so I'll probably jump into your stream and just try to troll you again. Megamind says, explain map with its all 3 arguments, third with array. What is its use case and how to do it properly? Map. Okay, so map is used for functions, for arrays. So let's say we had an array of names. You could say like Bob, Sally, and Paul. And let's say you wanted to map over that. Okay, so typically what you want to do in a map function is you take an array and you need to modify every element of that array. And in this case, we could like uppercase the first letter or something, or add an exclamation mark would be easier. So I'm going to say like altered names is equal to names.map. And then you said you want to see the 3 arguments. So we have the first one is the actual element. So I could say like value, which is going to be this. This is going to be the name. Let me rename that to name. That'll make more sense. So this will be Bob, Sally, and Paul. This one is the index. That should make sense. That's going to be 0, 1, and 2. And there's a third argument. I think this is just a reference to the array. So this is technically going to be the same pointer, names pointer, or reference or something. But inside this map function, what you do is you typically take the element, which happens to be name, and you can do something to it. So in our case, we're going to just append an exclamation mark to all these names, and we can print out altered names here. So let's just go ahead and do that. And you'll see that we have a new array that has Bob exclamation mark, Sally exclamation mark, and Paul exclamation mark. So that's kind of what this does. You can also do the index. Let me show you. Let's say I wanted to append the index to all these names. I can use that argument as well. And you'll see that this is index 0, 1, and 2. And then this names pointer, I think it's just a reference to the original array. So like if for whatever reason, I don't know what you'd use it for. I think if you wanted to like potentially delete something from the original names array, you could do that. So I could say like, let's see, if I could say if name is equal to Bob, we could say names pointer dot splice index 1, else return this stuff. This might crash. I don't even know. Let's see. Oh, wow. Yeah. So this is probably a bad example. Yeah, but this, okay, so I don't know what the use case is for this. I really haven't even used this. Maybe if this function is defined like somewhere else and for some reason you need this, like let's say you wanted to like, I'm trying to think what the use case would be for this. If anyone knows, let me know. Maybe you want to push something else into it. Let's try doing this. Let's see what happens if I do this. Let's say I said names pointer dot push, and then I just pushed in like a. So we should get back the original array with Bob, Sally, and Paul. But to be honest, I don't know. I don't know what you use this for. Thanks, babe. So Tina Cyber is my wife. She's down here. She always comments on all my videos. Tina, let me know if I should end the stream and come help out with the kids. I think I've been streaming for like an hour and a half now. Should probably end the stream, but I have like 15 people still watching. Last parameter is clone root array. Let's look that up real quick. Because there's stuff in JavaScript that I don't know, and it's one of those things where it's like, I never use this, so it's like, why do I even need to know it? You know what I'm saying? Maybe it's useful for something. Wait, I'm looking up the wrong docs. Let me go array.map. Array. The array map was called upon. Yeah, so this, again, this is just going to be, I think, the same reference. Like, let me just show you this real quick. I know I'm just wasting time at this point. But if I were to say console log names is equal to names pointer, I think this should be true for everything. Yeah, because they're both the same reference to the same array. But again, sorry, I can't give you a use case for it. But if you can think of a use case, if anyone can think of a use case for this, let me know. All right. So Megamind, I hope that kind of explained what map is. Donnie Roofs. I think Donnie has a channel as well. Let me just go to YouTube and check. I think he does like more advanced topics, honestly. I think he does like TypeScript stuff. Oh, he has 6 videos, but yeah, I mean, go here, subscribe to him. Maybe he'll start publishing some more videos in the future. Right, Donnie? Start joining us once a week. Make a video. Because I'd be interested in learning more about TypeScript and stuff. I'm trying to use TypeScript in my projects more, and I can't promise that I'll watch your videos, but I do want to learn more about TypeScript and like how to build cleaner code in TypeScript, because I feel like I'm just hacking in TypeScript. I just add random types and interfaces. Let's see. All right, so I've helped out Megamind. Wow, I can't believe I made it to the end of the stream. Like, I was so far behind. I mean, to the end of this chat. Could you have a go with generators? Yeah, so I actually started the stream out just trying to like learn generators. I could tell you what they do. I can't tell you a really good use case for them. But let's say you wanted to have a generator that basically infinitely returns you a counter, right? This is some generic basic example, but a generator function is just basically you do the function keyword, you put a star at the end of it, and I can say get a number. Like, let's say you're in the deli and you need to grab a number, right? So I need to get a number, take a number. This is going to be a function that's going to have basically just a while loop in it, right? So I'm going to say while true, and we can have a counter inside of that, which is just going to keep on printing out count plus plus. So I can say yield on this, and I'll kind of explain this yield thing in a second, but this is kind of like a return statement. When you call the generator.next.value, this is going to be what the value is. But now we have a function that you can use to create a generator. So I can say const my generator is equal to call it. And now if I actually print this out, you'll see that we have a generator that we can actually start doing some stuff with. So print it out, you see we have an object that says generator. But if you wanted to actually get a number, like again, you're at like a supermarket deli and you need to take one of those numbers to know when you're next to go up to the counter, you can say generator.next.value, and that'll print out 0. And every time you call this, it's going to print out an incremented value. So you can kind of do this, like you can kind of imagine like how this might be useful. I've never used this at work. I've never used a generator at work. But there might be some cool use cases for it, but I just haven't stumbled upon it. I find using like a proxy more useful, because you can actually do the same thing with just a function, right? I could just say, do a closure and say get a number. I could say this is going to be a function that has a count of 0, and this is going to return a function that just says return count plus plus. This is literally the same thing as doing all this, except for get a number. Let me get rid of my generator here. Yeah, so this is literally the same thing. It does the exact same logic. Okay, well, hold on a second. I have to call get a number, And then here I have to call my generator. Oh my gosh, what happened? Okay, I have too much stuff. All right, let's see if I call this. All right, so this does the exact same logic. Sorry, it took me a while to get to that point where I can demo this. But again, this is just a, I guess you can call this a closure, where basically we have like a private variable that we just keep incrementing. And when you call this, it returns a function that's just going to keep incrementing. So I don't know which one's better. I honestly would probably just do this, but maybe a generator is cleaner. Did I answer your question? If you're even still here, Sorina. All right, DevOps Directive. Let's keep on getting these shout outs. So YouTube, go to this guy's channel. How come when I actually like, this might be you. Whoa, what's going on here? I just want YouTube. There we go. Yeah, so be sure to go subscribe to DevOps Directive. Sid publishes a lot of videos related to DevOps. So if you're interested in learning about DevOps and just doing some cool stuff with Docker or Kubernetes, be sure to check out his channel. I've tried watching through some of your videos, but yeah, I think I was like here for one of the live streams we were working with Donnie, but I just haven't really gotten around to watching videos. I don't have much time. Like, I'm trying to make videos, so it's hard to go and watch other people's videos, but he makes some really good content. So go subscribe to his channel, click that bell icon if you want to learn more about DevOps, or just show support for some other creators on YouTube. By the way, if anyone has like more JavaScript questions, the stream was intended to help people with like just JavaScript questions, like what is a generator, what are proxies and stuff. So if you have a question like that, but it looks like the stream's dying down, so I might actually end this soon, maybe. I think I've been doing for an hour and 37 minutes. That's pretty long. All right, so Sid says, according to the Stack Overflow, the third argument can be useful when you are chaining several array methods and need to access the intermediate state of the array, result of the previous operation. So there's a use case for the third argument. I don't know if I truly understand what that use case is, but I've never used that third argument. I've been working in JavaScript for a while. I've never used that third argument, but I'm sure there's a couple of small use cases for it, which you might want to use in the future. I don't know. All right, let's see. Yeah, so a closure does the same thing as a generator, but maybe there's some benefits to it that I don't know. But at least I understand what a closure is now. I can, when someone asks what a closure is, I can actually like do this and show them like the equivalent with a generator. Rohan says, I can't write logic. Probably just something you have to practice with. Yeah, thanks for joining Coding After 30. Again, be sure to check out his channel. He's got some good content. Oh no, now all the questions come in. I shouldn't have said anything. All right, so promise all versus promise all settled. That's a good question. I don't even know what all settled is. Actually, I think I might know what it is. Okay, so promise all. Okay, yeah, I can explain this one. I've used all settled before now that I remember it. So let's say you have an array of 2 promises, right? So I'm going to say const my promises is equal to an array, and I could say that the first element is promise dot, or say new promise, and that one's going to just call resolve, and then I have another promise that's going to call reject. Okay, so hopefully you understand how to create a promise. I'm just constructing a new promise that takes a callback. That callback has 2 arguments, resolve and reject, and you can call those different callbacks depending on what you want the promise to do. So when you're doing promise.all, what happens is every promise has to actually be resolved for it to, I think, work. So let's just do like a dot then on this real quick. let's say value console log resolved value. And then we can also do a dot catch. Let me just show this. Console.log error. At least I'm pretty sure this is how this works, but we will find out real quick. So I think if I run this, this will actually call catch down here because one of these promises rejected. So let's try running this, and let's see, I have a syntax error. Oh, maybe I don't. Let's see. Let me not print out the error. All right, so promise all, again, every promise inside your array has to resolve. If it doesn't, it's going to call the catch. I think all settled. Doesn't matter if they resolve or reject. It's going to call then once they've all finished, once they're all settled. So if I call this, notice that we got back resolved value to print out. Okay, so even though this is throwing an exception, even though we're rejecting the promise, this then is still called. So I think that's the main difference between all and all settled, is that all settled doesn't care about if stuff's rejected or resolved. It just cares that they're all finished. So hopefully that kind of explained that concept pretty well. Can you implement some design pattern? There's a lot of design patterns, so I don't know. I don't know which one you might want to see. But usually in JavaScript, I haven't really seen many design patterns in JavaScript. I think design patterns are more geared toward like a statically typed language like Java or C#. But I mean, you can do like dependency injection or inversion of control inside of JavaScript. You can do factory functions. You can do singletons in JavaScript, but yeah. Yeah, did I answer your question about the promise all thing? Wait, did you ask about promise all? Who did? Oh yeah, this is someone else. Closure versus currying. So I think a currying function is just a function that returns a function. And a closure is more of like you need to like make a variable that's kind of privately scoped inside of the function. When to use bitwise operators. I actually have never used the bitwise operator at my work. When would you want to use it? Maybe it's if you need to have like a bit mask. So I think sometimes if you need to get really like dive deep into performance, sometimes you can use a bit mask to like keep track of things. So like, I don't even know if I'm going to do this right. So you can have like a mask. So I could say like mask of is red, and that could be a 1 and you bit shift it over like 0 or something. Let me just try this. I haven't done this in like so long, so I'm probably going to get this wrong. All right, so basically you're using the bits inside of an integer to know if something is true or not. So you can use them as like a toggle or a feature flag or something. And what we can say is you can say like value, const value is equal to mask is red, and I believe you can do like a logical or something. If you wanted to combine bits or something. To be honest, I'm probably going to mess this up big time, but let's try running this. All right, so this prints out 3. How do I print this out as a string? I think I say .toString and pass it a regex, whatever it's called. All right, bear with me. Bear with me, okay? All right, let's see if this actually does what I want it to. All right, you see here we printed out the actual integer, the actual like binary version of the integer, and it's 101. So every digit of the binary encoding can represent a flag, and you can actually write if statements using that. So I could say like if my value has, I think you do like an and, if the value has the same, or if you do a logical and with a mask, and this happens to be true, you can actually like console log something was true. Okay, so if this value happens to have one of those flags enabled, so a 1, then you can do an if statement like this and check if something was enabled. But if I were to go here and remove this or change this to blue, you'll notice that if I add an else statement here, I believe it should go to is false. Okay, so again, we're checking if red is turned on, but it's not because we haven't actually like added that to the integer. I don't know if I explained that pretty well, but I mean, that's kind of how it works. I don't know what the real use cases are for it. I think it's more of like a lower level, like hardware thing you might want to do if you need to like really save on memory. But memory is so cheap and most devices have so much memory that I don't really know why you'd even want to do this. But there's probably other use cases for knowing when to do bit shifting. Iterating a single item array can assist in understanding using breakpoints, and hovering over variables to see their values will lead to better understanding of object structure. Can't write logic. Oh yeah, so he's responding to this, I can't write logic. Yeah, using the debugger and stepping through stuff can really help you understand what's going on. Can you please share your aha moments of JavaScript or make a separate video of this? At this point, I don't even remember my aha moments of JavaScript. It's been so long that like all of this is just muddied together at this point. Like I just feel like I've already known this for a long time. I don't really remember the aha moments, but I could try to think of something and maybe make a video if I can think of some, but I tried to implement Singleton. All right, this is the last question I'm going to answer about the Singleton, and then I'm going to wrap the stream up. So a Singleton is basically, I think you have just one object, right? And every time that you try to get that object, it's the same reference to that object. So what you can do is, I don't know if you can do it with constructor in JavaScript, but typically with Java, you just have like a static factory. I'm probably going to slaughter this. I'm not going to explain this very well, but let's say you have an object and you need to return that object. Yeah, I'm going to slaughter this this little talk. Let me think about this real quick. I mean, what I've done is sometimes you'll have like a function called like get my object. And then you could also do like a closure. I think closures are kind of a good example of this. So a singleton could be like if my object is not defined, then you can make a new object and then just return it here. So if it's not defined, you define it and then you return it every time. And then up here, you probably have like a let that says like let it equal to null. And then I can call this. Then every time I call it, it should be the exact same reference. All right, so you notice here, if I do this and say, is this strictly equal to it? If I call it again, it should return you the same reference every single time. That's kind of a singleton pattern. I don't know if maybe there's another name for this. But you can also kind of like wrap this in a closure if you wanted to. Or maybe not. I think that's a singleton. Hopefully I explained that pretty well. Oh no, here come all the questions, huh? User model construction, singleton design pattern, user model instance. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I've actually used a singleton in JavaScript. Unless this is a singleton. I think this is a singleton because basically you just need to make sure you return the exact same reference to the object every time someone tries to construct it. I don't know how that works with the new keyword. You probably have to do something like you're doing over here with the constructor and saving it in like a static method or something, but I don't really like using classes that much in JavaScript. All right, well, if this live stream helped you, give me a thumbs up, leave me a comment, go through all my other videos and give me a thumbs up and comments because it helps my channel grow. And then also Yeah, give me an idea if you want me to make videos on other topics. Or if you enjoyed this live stream, I'll try to do this again in the future. I think people like having someone they can ask questions to live, and I'll try to get through these questions much faster. Yeah, I'm gonna wrap this up. So thank you so much for watching. Have a good day and happy coding. How do I end the stream though? Here we go. See y'all.